Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Until 3 years ago, it had been more than 20 years since I had moderated a public meeting. And I would like to ask your patience as we work our way through tonight's meeting. I have no doubt that you will kindly and gently call any errors to my attention. This would be a good time to shut off your cell phones and pagers, please. The meeting will be conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order, except as modified by state statute. You cannot change state law, but we can choose to modify Robert's rules with a 2/3 majority vote. General Roberts has pages of rules for decorum during debate. I hope that it will not be necessary to remind you to conduct yourself in a civil and polite manner. As Mike Hardy, our long-serving village moderator, always said, we arrived as neighbors and friends, and we will leave as such. Please stand, if possible, state your name when recognized. You'll have to forgive me if I do not know everyone's name, but I'll do my best. Please come to the microphone in the center of the room to speak. I will also recognize those on Zoom who wish to speak. Please address all comments and questions to me as the moderator, and I will either answer or redirect them to somebody who can respond to them. Only registered voters may speak unless by leave of the assembly, which requires 2/3 vote if there is not an objection. Otherwise, if there is an objection, unless there is an objection, I will assume there is a leave of the assembly for village officials who may not be resident voters to address the assembly for the purpose of explanation during this meeting. Those articles requiring Australian ballot vote will be taken up tomorrow and taken up tonight for discussion only. No other action than discussion to be taken on them at this meeting. I will strive to make rulings that I am called upon as impartially and correctly as I can. Any ruling of the moderator can be challenged immediately after the ruling. I will explain my ruling, and if you are not satisfied, all it takes is a request to challenge the ruling and put it to a vote of the assembly. Debate on the motion to appeal the ruling of the chair is generally in order. It is my job to assist you in accomplishing the business of this meeting. Please raise your hand and ask questions. If you think that something that has happened is wrong, or you don't understand what is happening, or if you want to do something and not sure what the procedure is, please raise your hand and I will do my best to help you with that. You must be recognized by the moderator to address the assembly. I will try to recognize all those who wish to speak in an orderly fashion, getting around to all those who wish to speak but haven't yet had the opportunity. Before returning to those who already have spoken, a person may speak only twice on an issue and is limited to 10 minutes total. I hope you can be brief and not feel you need to use up all of your time or replow the ground that you or someone else has already gone over. A motion must be made, seconded, and restated by the moderator before debate on the motion begins. In most instances, only 2 amendments will be allowed on the floor at any one time. That is 1 amendment to the main motion and 1 amendment to the amendment where appropriate. It requires a motion and a second and 2/3 vote to cut off debate and call the question. You have to be recognized to make the motion. You can't just shout out because you are tired of the debate. The motion to close debate is non-debatable. By state statute, once voters have acted on a question and taken up the next item of business, they cannot reconsider the action at the same meeting. Voting will be voice vote and hand vote with those on Zoom, unless the chair is in doubt, in which there will be a division. Also, any voter may call for a division as long as we have not started the next item of business. Any voter may also move to vote by paper ballot during the debate or before we have moved on to the next order of business, in which case the vote will be by ballot if the call for the ballot is sustained by at least 6 other members. Action under other business cannot require the expenditure of funds, nor can it be binding upon the village. Any action under other business is advisory only. I'd like to introduce the board and other important members here. To my right is Kathleen Nehawk, our village clerk. To my left is Scott Pickham, the village manager. Next is Wade Mashore, trustee. Next is Deborah Wright, village president. Next to Deborah is James McAuliffe, trustee. And at the very end of the table is Jeff Dunbar, trustee. We also have Shannon Burpley, our financial director, is on Zoom. And at this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over quickly to Deb Wright.
Evening, everyone. Thank you for attending, both here and on Zoom, and on Fact TV, those who are watching. I would like to take a moment to speak about our annual tribute. This year, we are honoring Geraldine Mary LaRange, or Jerry, as everyone knows her, as Jerry Hardy. And she could not be here tonight. We do have a framed picture of what we have in the book for her family to take home with them. But I wanted to just read what was written about her, which is very nicely done. And you'll all see it in the cover of our annual report. On November 21st, 1918, Geraldine Mary LaRange was born in Bellows Falls, Vermont. She grew up on Atkinson Street, attended St. Charles School, and graduated from Bellows Falls High School. In 1943, she married Norman C. Hardy, and they raised 3 sons, Michael, Dennis, and Thomas, and she was a second mother to many. Jerry always says that she has lived pretty much on the same block for almost 103 years. Jerry worked for many years in the school system, and she was very active in her church and community, and was often seen donating her time to many activities. For many years, Alumni Sunday ended at the Hardy House with food and refreshments while listening to the bagpipe band play. Jerry is a super mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and friend, and considers most people in the village her extended family. She has witnessed many changes over the years, lived through 2 pandemics, the Great Depression, saw the dam being built, electricity come to homes, dirt roads being turned to paved roads, and always welcomed all into her home with words of warmth and a hot meal. She is one special lady, and I would like to take a moment to clap for Jerry, and sorry she can't be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. The warning for tonight and tomorrow has an introductory paragraph which reads as follows. The legal voters of Bellows Falls Village Corporation are hereby notified and warned to meet at the Bellows Falls Opera House in the Rockingham Town Hall located at 7th Square in said village on Monday, May 17th, 2021 at 7 p.m. to act upon all matters which may be voted upon by acclamation and not otherwise to be voted upon by Australian ballot, and then adjourn to the Masonic Temple, 61 Westminster Street in said village at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021 to vote by Australian ballot on Article number 1 and number 4. The polls will open at 8 a.m. and will close at 7 p.m. Moving on to the business. Article 1, to elect village officers as required by law. This is an Australian ballot vote tomorrow at the Masonic Temple. Article 2, to receive and act upon the reports of the village officers for the past year. I would entertain a motion. Is there a second?
Second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to receive and act upon the reports of the village officers for the past year. Is there any discussion? Mr. McPhee.
First off, there are some corrections on page 5. I know that we should know who we are, but I guess we don't. And I realize somebody cut and pasted. If you go down through, you'll find the legal voters of the town of Rockingham and the town of Rockingham School District. Should read the village of Bellows Falls. Article 1, to elect town officials and town school district officials should read village. Article 2, going back to reports of the town officers, should read also village. If we could turn our attention, please, to health and welfare. I realize the cost of insurance is outrageous, but I have a couple of questions. First off, just roughly figuring, excluding the water sewer, we're paying about 10% of our annual budget for health insurance or health insurance for village employees. But page 29, fire department, $26,500. I thought it was just Chief McGinnis who received insurance. Can someone tell me why that is $26,500, please?
Scott.
We do spread other costs amongst other departments within our health benefits lines, and there is an opportunity when we take our numbers, we don't take it per person, so we take an average. So in this case, we take an average of somebody who's going to take insurance, as well as an average of somebody who's going to receive the incentive for insurance.
Okay,
so
Chief.
that reflects a number that, depending upon the selection, will be within that appropriation.
So Chief McGinnis is the only one currently receiving
Correct.
health insurance. Okay. A little misleading, but I accept your answer. Thank you. Doesn't work. Okay. Other than that, I have a question, and I don't disapprove of this. We're again going to spend $40,000 on page 28 on the fire police facilities repairs. Can someone just roughly tell me what we plan on doing in the next fiscal year?
Scott again.
So we have roughly a 3 project program. Most of it centers around. I'm sorry, I can take this off if it's easier to hear. It's a little muffled. So right now we have a 3-year project program for that building. The first step is we have some areas that need to be refinished and repainted. We have metal door frames and metal doors that have rotted from the weather. So the front entranceway has to be reconfigured and repainted. So we're going to spend roughly $8,000 to $10,000 to do that. We have some parking lot improvements that we have to, we're going to relocate some parking with the goal of hopefully having some ability in the future to look at changing some of the uses around the exterior of the building. We currently don't have a sally port for officers when we transport prisoners. We don't have an area where we can impound vehicles. And so we're looking at a possibility of expanding that as well. And then we also have some elevator repairs that we had voted an article for, which we still have not completed. And those have to be done as well. Those will probably be the 3rd phase of the building improvements.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on article number 2? Mr. Hardy, if you'd like to. And then if you want, you go ahead and remove your mask. I think it just makes it easier for everybody to hear.
First off, I'd like to thank the board for dedicating the warning, the article to my mother. The whole family would like to thank you very much. And having said that, I feel a little awkward saying that this book should have the actuals in here. I would have thought we'd learned from the town meeting that there's no actuals for the budget in there. And I don't know how you can create a budget or ask us to vote on a budget without knowing what we spent last year or the year before. So I just hope next year we do things a little different. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Laurel.
Laurel Green. As many of you know, I'm the chair of Sustainable Rockingham, and I have an eye on what climate change is doing to our community. And I really hope that when you make budget considerations, you include that as well. I can't decipher from the numbers here. It's probably too much detail, but just very curious how much the town highway department, that's town, isn't it? Highway department.
That's correct.
Loop. But sewer and water falls under the village. And as climate change continues to affect our village, our town, our state, in fact, our country and the whole world, we will continue to see an increase of population here because of climate migration. And sewer and water is one of the key factors. So I'm just wondering if that was taken into account in the budgeting. I want to really applaud the sludge drawing process. That's going to help with the budget costs, but we need to be keeping in mind looking ahead to a greater population in our village, and would love to hear how that's been included in this coming budget. Thank you.
Scott?
I can give you some answers to that. I think the primary concern that we have right now is protection of our facilities, especially our sewage treatment facilities, because those are impacted by flood events. So Rob Wheeler and I have been working with our engineers about some flood-proofing options on some of our buildings. Basically, it'll be some new flood protection around doorways and door frames and elevating some of our sensitive equipment. So if we do have another Irene type of storm or other, 500-year event, we can protect some of that critical infrastructure. Those numbers are still not reflected in this current budget. We're hoping that the American Rescue Plan, I'm sure everybody's been reading about all of this money that supposedly is flowing from Washington. We have yet to see it. We're hopeful that it will be here to help us with some of those costs. So that is one of the goals that we'll be working with the trustees, and you should see specific items like those coming to your attention as we go forward.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Anybody on Zoom? Okay. So Article 2, the motion has been made to receive and act upon the reports of the village officers for the past year. I think I'm going to do this by raise of hand, so all the Zoom people can, if they would, hit their little hand up. Okay? As corrected. Thank you, Douglas. Yes, as corrected. So all of those in favor to receive and act upon the reports of the village officers for the past year would raise their hand, please. I just want to give Zoom a minute for them to vote if they're interested.
Yeah, we'll only see it on this computer.
Okay. Okay. And all those opposed would raise their hand. It appears that the ayes have it, the ayes do have it, and motion 2 has passed. We will move on to Article 3 to see if the voters of the Bellows Falls Village Corporation will vote to authorize its treasurer with the approval of the trustees to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of tax collection or payment of money due the village from the state of Vermont or the federal government. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Do we have a second out on the floor? So the motion has been made and seconded to see if the voters of the Bellows Falls Village Corporation will vote to authorize its treasurer with the approval of the trustees to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of tax collection or payment of money due the village from the state of Vermont or the federal government. Is there any discussion? Any discussion from Zoom? Seeing none, all those that are in favor of the article would raise their hand. Okay. Okay. Those opposed would raise their hand. It appears that the ayes have it. The ayes do have it, and Article 3 has passed. Moving on to Article 4. Shall the voters of the Bellows Falls Village Corporation raise and appropriate money to pay the indebtedness of the village and pay all other general and regular expenses of the village beginning July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 in the amount of $1,618,500 with the amount of $1,593,500 to be raised by taxes. This will be voted on by Australian ballot tomorrow at the Masonic Temple, but we would certainly open up for discussion if there is any discussion on this motion or this article. Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Moderator, I just have a few comments, if that's okay, just to give a little
Absolutely,
bit of
Scott.
Context. Thank you. First of all, to everybody's in the room tonight, I just wanted to say thank you to all of the folks who have been following the guidelines and the confusing guidelines that come out surrounding COVID. This is our 16th amended executive order from the governor since March of last year. So as much as you've been confused by COVID and where do I shop and how do I do this, and people transacting business in this building have been impacted by 16 changes in the last 15 months. So for all the folks that have come in here and conducted business and the staff and everybody who's accommodated these changes, I really do appreciate all of your goodwill, and we've been able to basically function in some pretty challenging times. With that being said, I'll give a little commentary just on some of the highlights of the budget. I think that it's important to highlight. So basically, back in 2011, if you look, there was an insert in your village report. We raised roughly $1,654,926 by taxes. In 2021, we're proposing to you to raise $1,618,500 in taxes. Over that 10-year period, the inflation rate averaged out to roughly 18.84%. So if we had stood alone and did nothing, you guys can do the math and see where the numbers could have escalated to. Our health insurance premium rates over that same period escalated over 5.22% per year. Expenses that, again, are difficult for a small village like us to control. Our employer contribution rates to VEMRs, which are based on a percentage of our payroll, and this is a Vermont-wide number, so every community in Vermont faces these same challenges. In 2012, that rate was roughly 5.34% of payroll. In 2020, it was 6.44% of payroll, and they have not yet finalized our 2021 numbers. So you can see where the inflationary pressures have built on the budget before we get into levels of service, contractual obligations, responses to critical events, all the things that impacted the last 10 years. With that being said, there are some positive outlooks in our expense budget. Our workers' comp premiums, for one, have shown a serious reduction, which has been a nice savings. We've increased the amount of money that we're spending on building maintenance and repair, as we discussed at our police fire building and some of our other facilities. We're trying to catch up on deferred maintenance. It's difficult. It's a challenge. We have old buildings, we have old infrastructure, but we're trying to do it within a responsible tax rate. We're looking at issues that impact our community and impact our neighbors about possibly doing a tax sale in the fall. And I know that we've monitored our tax receipts and collections closely. So far, COVID has not been a dramatic impact on that. It remains to be seen going forward how this continues, but as of right now, we did not see the precipitous drop that everybody anticipated when this started 15 months ago. We are replacing vehicles in our police department. That's being done out of our current revenues. We've also established in this budget process a fund, vehicle fund to go forward with so that we can replace the vehicles on a more every roughly 2 to 3 year basis. We're going to have a lot of changes in the police department in terms of body cameras and how we go about doing policing. That's not just a Bellows Falls issue, that's a national issue. And body cameras are wonderful in terms of the immediacy of the information that they provide and the ability to communicate with people about incidences or issues that might be of concern. The challenge for us is it costs money. It costs money to maintain these body cameras. It costs money to store all the data that we do get from those body cameras. And there's a whole process now that we have to work around. And we're going to be working with the trustees as to how we go about saving that data and accessing it in the cloud so that we have that ability to go and pull it back when we need it for other types of cases or other types of concerns that the community might have. On the revenue side, we had briefly touched on the American Rescue Plan. We are having hopefully some guidance from the federal government released tomorrow about how we might get money, how it might be coming to us, and what restrictions there might be on the money that we're being potentially offered. So there is no reflection in the revenue side of this budget for any of that potential federal spending. There's also increased monies that you've all seen reported in the news for broadband, for wastewater, and for water. We're also not, at this point, there's been no guidelines for those projects or how we can access that money, but we are lining up capital work and we'll be working closely with the community if we are eligible to make sure we get some of those federal dollars and help update and modernize some of that infrastructure as well. And I think the last piece of the budget that's important for us to discuss is it took a lot of discipline and hard work. This board and the employees made a special effort to try to increase the fund balance. We had reached some precipitously low numbers. And why that's important is because that fund balance impacts your ability to go out and get bonds. So the better that you look on your fund balance, you're going to get better rates on your bonds, and ultimately that saves the taxpayers money. So we've been increasing fund balance. We're now at good ratios. I think that was a lot of hard work went into that. It was not easy to get to those numbers. And I think, again, there's a challenge for us going forward to make sure that we maintain that and possibly enhance that as we go forward. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on Article 4, the budget article? Anything from Zoom? Okay. So again, that will be voted on tomorrow at the Masonic Temple. Move on to Article 5, to transact any other business deemed proper when not involving the expenditure of village funds or any other business acted upon in the preceding articles. Pat. Turn on your mic. Thank you, Pat.
I am Pat Fowler. I'm village auditor. However, this is the first time I saw the audit as I was checking people in. So neither Tim Powers nor I have had a chance to review this, and we are rather disappointed that that happened. That it does say that there's nothing, crisis in here, but normally we do have some questions for the town manager and or the finance director. So I have been asking about it, and I've asked Shannon several times and she hasn't been able to get it. I think there was problems with the auditing company trying to get the paperwork out. So I apologize that we weren't able to do it, to look at it ahead of time, but we might have some questions for Shannon later.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, Laurel?
I really want to appreciate our Zoom team. This is a huge improvement. I had some real problems with the town annual meeting because Zoom people participating or wanting to participate by Zoom were not treated fairly and equitably. I really appreciate the effort that the village has done to make this meeting more accessible. I would ask the moderator to pause longer when asking for a response from people who are on Zoom, because there is a delay and then they need time to be able to think and then to act. When you took the vote, you did an exemplary job, and then the next time you asked for responses, it was too quick.
Okay,
So
great.
thank you very much.
I think it's a little bit of a learning curve running the Zoom this way when you have such a large public, especially town meeting. There was 60-something members out there, so I think it will get better each time. So, but thank you very much for your comments. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Deb.
To say that I too appreciate the comments from the public of taxpayers asking questions about corrections to our minutes from last year, and also probably level of difficulty with not receiving the audit also created an issue that Denny brought up about the fact that there is no actuals, and technically it would have been 22 budget proposed 21. We still haven't finished the year, so we wouldn't have numbers posted here, but usually the year prior shows you how we finish out the year, and that would have been FY 2020. And I too am discouraged by this because it makes it difficult to be able to do estimates in your head when you're looking at tons of lines to see what makes sense based upon the last 3 years of performance. And you really can't see that here. I anticipate that corrections that we have taken in the last couple of years, which have been crazy, fixing things and taking care of all the numbers that need to be done with everything else going on in the pandemic, that 2022's meeting will be not like this, and that we will be able to provide numbers so that people can make logical decisions about their feelings on the budget and where we're headed. And otherwise, we'll have to, at this point, we're thanking you for your blind understanding that we are doing the best we can to take care of this, and corrections will be made for the following year. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Again, anything else? Anything else to come before this?
Stephen Crofter. I'm wondering if anyone could fill us in on what's happening with the Opera House in terms of programming movies, when things will be happening, what changes are being made, if any, et cetera.
Scott, if you'd like to
Sure.
respond,
Give you
please.
just a brief update on the Opera House. So we are working on a couple of items. We have some code enforcement issues that we have to complete. We have code issues we have to complete around the concession stands. We've done some updates in the bathrooms. We've done some other fire safety inspections and improvements. So the physical jobs or updates should be done. We're hoping to open sometime around the end of school, which is the 14th, 15th of June. So we're looking to start programming for that. We have a draft of an agreement for a new operating agreement with an organization that we're working on with the town board that hopefully will help us with our longer term programming needs. And then we have a Opera House committee that's going to be more active in our long-term investment in the facility. We have some improvements that have been cataloged for lighting, for new projectors, for a variety of different upgrades. Each of them are somewhat expensive and will have to be prioritized and obviously brought forth through the budget process. The other thing, and again, I'd like to thank the staff for Gary, specifically went through a very difficult shuttered venue operations grant. It's a small business association grant. We waited in line to get our application in, and we were able to get in with the first tranche of, I don't know, 5,000 or 6,000 applications. So I don't know what the total numbers worked out to be. So we're waiting to see if we were funded, which would help us sort of transition, reopening, and help take some of the financial pressure off. Because at this point, we're just not sure how people are going to react to crowds and whether or not we're going to see, you know, we're talking about live performances later in the fall. We're talking about, like you said, movies. And I just don't know how people are going to react to coming and sitting inside spaces.
Thank
So
you
we're
very
hopeful.
much.
Sure.
Anything else? Yes.
There was one other thing I wanted to basically announce. The resilience team of Sustainable Rockingham is working in collaboration with our town manager and our fire chief to have a Blue Sky Day event this summer. It's going to sort of encompass the Old Home Days time. Blue Sky Days are, it's a Red Cross term for times when you have a beautiful day like today, business as usual, and a great time to prepare for emergencies. A gray sky day is the response to emergency. And so just, I wanted to pique your interest and your curiosity. Know that there's fun stuff, new stuff going to be happening in town starting July 23rd through August 2nd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Jigs.
Acknowledge the fact that we have a new village manager, also subs as the town manager. I don't know if you've recognized, but it's so refreshing to be a board member and have the manager answer questions from the field rather than the board having to stumble around and trying to come up with answers. But we've enjoyed working with Scott since September, October, and I want to welcome him officially and thank him for the great effort that he's made during his first 7 or 8 months on the job. So, thank you.
Anything else? Anything from Zoom? The last thing I'd like to say is just to remind everybody that voting will take place tomorrow at the Masonic Temple, which is 61 Westminster Street, from 8 a.m. until 7 p.m. So that's where the Australian ballot voting will go. Mr. McPhee. Motion is made to adjourn. All in favor would say aye. We're adjourned.